YouTube. Welcome back to another watch video. Here we are reviewing the Seiko SKX009 diving watch. And so let's begin. First, let's start with our wristwatch check. If you've been following my channel, then you know that in my most recent video, I did feature and review my Rolex Datejust on the Jubilee bracelet. And back to the Seiko. So let's begin. All right, so just to give you a little bit of background about how I acquired this watch. I have liked the diving watch design for quite a while now. In fact, it's one of my favorite designs for a watch. And I had seen this design by Seiko, and it's known to be one of the more affordable diving watches. So I did look online and I did see this watch on eBay actually, and I did buy this watch pre-owned. The seller was in Los Angeles, California, and I did get this watch for a really good price, but it's in pretty good condition, or it was in great condition, pretty much brand new when I did purchase it a few years ago. All right, so let's talk a little bit about this watch and analyze it. First, of course, the dimensions. So this does have a 42 millimeter diameter. So in other words, we're talking about the length from one end of the bezel to the other. That's about 42 millimeters. And then the thickness of the watch is about 13.5 millimeters. Lug to lug is about 46 millimeters. Now the lug width is 22 millimeters, so that lets you know what kind of alternative strap or band you can put on this watch. And the weight is about 109 grams. Let's take a look at the dial, or in other words, the face of the watch. So the dial is, as you can see, pretty plain to some degree. Now it does have a dark blue or a deep blue color to it. And it does have, of course, hour markers and minute markers. Notably, of course, is that on the dial, there's no numbers. Specifically, there are no numbers to indicate the hours. The hours are indicated by these white circles, these oblong shapes for the 6 and the 9, and then this triangular shape at the 12 o'clock position. You don't really need numbers to tell time, and actually this is a very easy watch to read, especially because of the high contrast behind the dial color and the white markers. Notably also is that the markers appear to be very flat. In other words, very flat compared to and with the dial around it. There's no applied indices, there's no raised surfaces. It's just simply flat. So on the dial, you see the name Seiko, and then automatic, indicating, of course, that it has an automatic movement inside. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. And it says divers, and then it indicates the water resistance, which is 200 meters. At the 3 o'clock position, you see the day of the week and date function. And interestingly, the day of the week on this particular model is in both English and in French as well. And then, of course, it has the date function as well, going up to 31 days in the month. Now, surrounding the dial is the bezel. And as you can see here, it has two colors, blue and red. This bezel is also known as the Pepsi Bezel because of those colors. And the bezel is, the insert is made of aluminum, so it's not the most scratch resistant, although as you can see here, this particular bezel on my watch is still in pristine condition despite me wearing it with good use, including some swimming activities. You can see the minutes markers from 0 to 60 minutes. So basically the bezel has an entire hour worth of minutes on the markings. At the 12 o'clock position, you do have a lume pip. In other words, that is a little circle that actually glows in the dark when light has been applied to it. And this bezel is unidirectional. In other words, it's a bezel that you can actually turn. This bezel is somewhat stiff because I haven't turned it in a while. Now the grip is so-so on this watch. It does have what they call a coin edge bezel. And so you are able to turn it one way, but not the other way. Again, indicating it's unidirectional. Of course, this is important because if you are diving, you don't want that bezel to accidentally turn in the wrong direction and indicate the wrong amount of time, because this is timing how much oxygen is in your tank if you're scuba diving. Now on to talking about the crystal. So again, we have the bezel, the dial, and overlying the dial is the crystal. Now this is a proprietary crystal made by Seiko, and it's called Hardlex. This crystal, in terms of its scratch resistance, is somewhere in between a mineral crystal and a sapphire crystal. In other words, it is more scratch resistant than a mineral crystal, but less scratch resistant than a sapphire crystal. Now the movement inside, as you can see, not only because it says automatic on the dial, but also because the seconds hand rather, is moving very smoothly. You can tell that this is an automatic dial, or automatic movement. Now the movement specifically is a Seiko 7S26 movement. A couple important features about this movement. Number one, it is non-hacking. So in other words, when you pull out the crown in order to set the time, the seconds hand does not stop moving. It just keeps moving, and so it's non-hacking. In other words, it is a lot more challenging or difficult to set this time to the exact seconds of real time. In other words, basically the seconds hand just keeps moving. Secondly, this movement is non-windable. In other words, when you pull out this crown to set the time, even though you can turn it, it's not winding the movement. So in other words, if you wear this watch, or rather if you take this watch off and more time passes than the power reserve, then the watch is going to stop. And in order to restart the watch and get the seconds hand and the minutes hand and everything moving and getting it to start keeping track of time, you have to wear it or you have to shake it. It's not going to be able to be wound by hand. Now the movement has 21 joules and it moves at 21,600 beats per hour, and it has a 40-hour power reserve, which is it's kind of a medium amount of power reserve. I will not say it has the most power reserve, because you can certainly find watches with more than 50 or even sometimes more than 70 hours worth of power reserve. So that simply means that if you take this watch off to perhaps wear a different watch on the weekend and you keep it off of your wrist for more than 2 days, it's going to stop. Now let's talk about luminosity, because that's something also very characteristic and well known about Seiko, is that Seiko has excellent lume. Lume is the glow in the dark feature, and of course lume is applied to both that hour, the 12 o'clock pip, as well as the markings, so specifically the hour markings on the watch. And the material that they use for lume is called Lume Bright, and it is a very bright lume and a very long-lasting lume. In fact, the lume usually will last more than 5 hours on this watch, which of course means that it more than fulfills its purpose of being a dive watch where you need the lume to last at least for an hour. And it of course makes it very easy to read the time at nighttime or in dark settings, such as in a dark room, and of course while you are under the water, scuba diving or swimming. And of course, in addition to the lume, just the fact of having such contrast, such a difference between the white hour markers and the very dark blue dial color, that helps a lot. In terms of water resistance, again, because it's a diving watch, it does have 200 meters of water resistance. That's great, and that's excellent, meaning that it is suitable for scuba diving and diving to deep depths. Now let's talk a little bit about the bracelet. I really like this bracelet. As you can see, I am a fan of the Jubilee style bracelet. That's here on my Datejust, as well as on the bracelet for this watch. This is the original bracelet that came with it. It is a Jubilee style, so it has a lot of different small pieces to it. We would call this a 5-link bracelet because it has 5 pieces that go across from one to the other. The center links, as you can see, are polished, and they're very kind of shiny. It catches the eye. The side links are of a brushed appearance. And of course, brushed appearance, brushed polish, brushed helps to hide scratches. And here you see the clasp. As you can see, I've worn this watch and put a few scratches on it, and that's okay. That's an area of the watch that tends to get scratches. The clasp is signed with the Seiko name. And let's go ahead and take the watch off of the watch pillow. All right. So taking a look a little bit further into the features of this bracelet, it has a stamped clasp, so you can see very thin, and the clasp allows for micro adjustments, which is nice. It allows you to get a more firm or more secure fit on the wrist. The end links are hollow. That is, of course, considered to be a lower end feature. In other words, an inferior feature of the bracelet. It does allow for a little bit of lightness of the watch as a whole. Let's look at the case back. So the case back is solid. It is not transparent or see-through. You cannot see the movement through there. It does have some words on the back. Let's take a look. So it says Seiko, has perhaps a serial number there, which of course indicates the movement, which is the 7S26. It says scuba divers. There's another number on there, and it says stainless steel. And it has a little emblem there. Let's see if we can get into the focus. Just looks almost like a wave and some water or a surfboard perhaps. All right. Now something else about this watch, the crown. The crown is at a different position from most watches. In fact, again, let's use our date just for comparison, and you see this is a more classic or standard position. It's at the 3 o'clock position. But as you can see, if you really extend your wrist, you'll notice that that crown could dig in a little bit into your wrist. Whereas on the 4 o'clock position, it avoids that discomfort. So you could say that by picking that position, this is a more comfortable watch, perhaps. Now looking at the sides of the case, you see that they have done a good job creating a unique shape here, actually, with these curves that are polished. The top of the watch has this brushed finish. I like how they just have this edge here before it has another edge, and then has a nice curve to the case of the watch. That's kind of a different or unique shape. It doesn't just have just a drop off. So again, it's got this first edge and then a second edge, and then it just really kind of curves nicely around. As you can see, my watch has acquired a few scratches on the sides just from use, of course. Okay, let's put the watch on the wrist, shall we? So let's take off the date just. Let's put this on the wrist. All right, take a look. And so again, this is a 42 millimeter diameter watch, and this is how it looks like on my 7-inch wrist. Very comfortable. Jubilee bracelets conform really well to the shape of the wrist and really allow for a lot of comfort. As you can see, with the crown at the 4 o'clock position, it does to some degree still dig into the back of the hand and to the wrist, but that's pretty much unavoidable. All right, and there you have it, guys. So that's my review of the Seiko SKX009. I hope you liked this video, and hopefully you learned something about this watch. Please, guys, subscribe to my channel if you don't mind. It really allows me and encourages me to share more videos with you all. And of course, if you like this video, hit the like button. Otherwise, we will catch you guys in the next watch video. You guys have a wonderful day.